if the sentence is going to involve 34 counts, where each count ends up being served consecutively. There is almost no
sentence on July 11th, which is obviously a little more than a month from now. There is no bail. He will leave court today, a free man for now, certainly. And as you heard Dan report there, and legal analysts across the board have said that jail time in this case extremely, extremely unlikely. But obviously, it leads to some immediate questions right away when you're talking about the presumptive Republican nominee in the race for the White House. Does it change the race? At least right now, it doesn't. He can continue to run for president regardless.
We are live. It is a historic day in the history of this country. That in itself is an understatement. Nothing like this has ever even come close to happening in American history, save, if you will, for Richard Nixon's impeachment. But he was wise enough to say, let me step aside before it came to any of this. But today, at 4:26 p.m. Eastern Time, jury handed Judge Marchand a note after he, about 26 minutes earlier, said that we're going to go home at 4:30. The jury said, hold up, just give us a half an hour more to fill out these 34 verdict forms. We are done. And with that, one of the amazing things was DA Alvin Bragg himself then sauntered into the courtroom, sat right beside his team, behind his team, I should say, and eagerly awaited those verdicts. They were handed in. They were handed in pretty quickly, 9.5 hours by some estimates, over 2 days. Katia Woods, did you expect it to be so quick? And when it was announced, I know Austin, and texting with Austin, when it was announced that they had a verdict, there was some trepidation. Katia, what did you think when you heard at about 4:30 Eastern time that there was a verdict?
I mean, okay, if they would have came back with a verdict quickly, like in terms of like an hour or two, I would have said it's going to be not guilty, right? But once they started asking for more details and clarity of explanation, then I was like, we might have something. Did I think he was going to be found guilty on all 34 counts? No. But I did think that, hey, he's not going to get away with this because it seems as though they might be having a discussion, not in terms of semantics, but in terms of like clarity and understanding, like to make sure that they're following the instructions. So I was like, you know what, there may be a light at the end of this tunnel, because if you weren't really serious about looking at it and just, you know, kind of being like, heck, we're tired of this, we want to go home, why would you then ask for clarity, ask for statements to be read back to make an informed decision? So I felt like maybe not all 34, but I was like, he not getting away with this.
and Austin, you know, there obviously this has never happened before, but in this particular case, as Kahia said, some just, you know, he's going to get away with it or he's not getting away with it. Gut of guts when you heard that there was a verdict.
Thanks, Stacy. Hello, my sister. Good to see you. You know, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, I was, was absolutely nervous. You know, first of all, I was relieved that a verdict had been reached, and when I heard that it was not a hung jury, I said that's either guilty or innocent, and I honestly didn't know which way it was going to go. I am pleasantly relieved, pleasantly surprised. You know, for the first time in this human being's life, he is being held accountable for his actions, and whether he does jail time or not, and I hope he does. But whether he does, even if he doesn't do jail time, this is a victory for democracy, and it shows
And
that all held to the same standards.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm seeing folks say that, but the most important thing came, I think, from the Biden campaign, which said, "Hey, he is still a candidate." Here it goes. There's still only one way to keep him out of the White House. This is a quote from the Biden campaign, and that is at the ballot box. So folks are still um, on edge because there are some, Katia, who said that this is only going to raise his profile among, or at least invigorate his followers.
Well, here's the thing, right? You have people that want to say that last week when he was in the Bronx, it was all good, right? And saying, look, they love him in the Bronx, and try to say it was 35,000 people. When you gotta lie about your guy in order to make him
Yes,
look
yes, yes.
human, in order to make him look like a community that he has been very clear on that he doesn't care about, that's therein lies the problem. Because you know what, people always spin things in politics, but when you gotta say it's 35,000 people, we all got eyes, we all can count, therein lies the problem.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
those people don't want the truth. Let's be very clear. I'm so tired of us tiptoeing around. These people don't want the truth. They are like members of a cult. They want to be
mm,
members of this cult. This gives them a sense of belonging, gives them a sense of identity. They don't even, like, when you ask them straightforward questions, they don't care because they don't want to lose their club membership. And this is
Absolutely.
their cheap country club, cheap AV club, whatever you want to think of. This is their community because they don't have anything else in their lives. And that's sad to say, that makes them feel seen and heard. And for whatever reason, this man, this clown, is now their leader in the sense of belonging. Because when you, the other day, right, somebody said that he always, when he was up there talking about he always wanted to earn a Purple Heart, he always wanted a Purple Heart. It's just
he's the
astonishing.
one who called cowards
Captain
those who
Spurs.
got captured or
Exactly.
injured.
And you know
Yeah.
what?
Bone Spurs.
Our ancestors, right? Our
Mhm.
ancestors. You want to talk about patriotism? Fighting for a country that didn't think of you as human because you were fighting for the next generation, for the possibility that this country one day would do the right thing by us. That's patriotic, you know? So I just, again, we got to stop thinking that they're going to see the light. This is the only way this will stop. I hate to say this because I'm not advocating for anybody to do this. It needs like a Jim Jones ending. And then
We
maybe
could
we
talk
have a
about that too.
possibility of
Yeah.
having a
Yeah.
little bit of clarity.
Yeah, it's so interesting, Katia, that you would say that on our morning show. We just talked about the whole Jim Jones situation.
Mhm.
We get it. We definitely get it. Here's a couple of statements, real quick. Jasmine Crockett, U.S. Rep. Jasmine Crockett. She says, and this is a direct quote. Woo, chow. Guilty on all counts in the state case. No matter what happens in November, he cannot undo this verdict. He says,
Absolutely.
she says, I know many are celebrating and I get it, but my heart effing breaks for our country. How did we get here? When did we stop requiring some darned decency of the most powerful person on earth? She goes on to say, the grand jurors, the prosecutors, the judge, the witnesses, and this jury deserve so much more than they will receive. This was a brave undertaking and an unnecessarily violent and politically charged America. That is Representative Jasmine Crockett, Austin.
Yep. And the same way, as my sister pointed out, the same way that this guilty verdict is going to inspire the Trump base, he's already raising money off of these 34 guilty counts. He is now a convicted felon. And the same way this is exciting his base, we've got to realize we've got to realize that we need to double our efforts and to reelect Joe Biden.
And that scene right there, that she Greer is displaying there is really it's one of those things that who could ever have thought they would see. This is a verdict This is reaction. A bar full of people reacting as if it's a sporting event, a verdict, a guilty verdict 34 times to a
Where was
person
this,
who is the
Stacey?
front runner for president. I'm
Where
sorry,
was
Austin.
this? Where was this?
I was thinking, where was
Yeah,
this taken?
yeah, that's a good question. Greer will be able to fill us in, but
Yeah.
Dr. Nicole said that commentary is going to be popping. But here's another statement. Katia and Austin, the Reverend Al Sharpton has responded. He says, I couldn't help but think throughout this trial of Donald Trump sitting through a days of testimony in Manhattan Criminal Court. This is the same building that Antron McCray, Kevin Richardson, Yusef Salaam, Raymond Santana, and Corey Wise all passed into day after day as they entered a show trial for a crime they did not commit. These children had to hear vitriol from people whose anger was incited by a man who spent a small fortune on full page ads calling for their execution. Now the shoe is on the other foot. Donald Trump is the criminal, and those 5 men are exonerated. I'm reminded of Dr. King's proverb that the arc of history is long, but it bends toward justice. Then the Reverend Al goes on to say that what happens next is crucial. We cannot allow the hate speech that Donald Trump spewed in 89, 2016, or 2024 to be mimicked by those who have stood against his actions. Reverend Al Sharpton.
The other thing too is, will he be able to vote? Because you can't vote if you're a convicted
That's a great
felon. So
question.
he's going to be
That's a
running
great
for
question.
office. He can't vote for himself.
So the answer to that question is, short answer is yes. He will be able to vote come November. New York does have a law that allows convicted felons to vote if they have either A, not yet started their time, or B, have been if their time has completed, if they finished their sentence. So it's either before you go in or after you come out. And so he will be able to vote.
So, Stacey, have they announced when he's going to be sentenced? Well, he'll have to return.
Sentencing, yes, is has been scheduled for July the 11th, and in Judge Marchand's courthouse at 10 a.m. Eastern time, July 11th.
That's right before
And
the
so,
convention.
yeah, and so that's going to be interesting, Katia and Austin, because it is an amazing timing, because he will face something interesting. Because if the judge decides, you know what, this guy has ticked me off enough, 34 counts, and that's the other important thing about these 34 counts, is that there was not one not guilty in here. It left
Yeah.
no leeway.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, Mike V, he is registered in Florida, and I mentioned New York because Florida's law will go by whatever the state that convicted the person in will go by their rules. And in addition to that, I was just reading. I'm glad you asked that, because I looked all that up last night before this. But Florida's the other part is that DeSantis, the governor, does have the authority to lift and grant, I should say, anyone, of course, including Donald Trump, voting rights, regardless of their standing as a convict or not. So the fix is in there. So you can forget that. But the thing about it, Trump had Katia had claimed, nonsensical, of course, before this verdict, that the jury was out to get him. Everyone was out to get him. And that's been his mantra, right? Hillary Clinton said it best, I believe, back in 2015, that if something's not going his way, it's always somebody else to blame.
Somebody else's fault. Yep.
That and the other part she said, which is so true, he scams everybody he does business with.
Mm-hmm.
He's a scammer.
Everybody.
He cheats everybody. And the other thing too, what I thought was very interesting, all these people paraded down there in New York, stopped our business getting done, the business of the people, to go and hold his hand and it did nothing. And I'm with you, Stacey. Now, you all's president, that man, was quite disrespectful to this judge. The judge told him not to go out there and run his mouth, and he will run his mouth. And to be honest with you, he could have just ruled him in contempt and sent him to be sitting in the cell, right? But he didn't. He fined him. So seeing that exactly what you said, he's found guilty on all 34 counts, I'm just saying, I'm petty. So I'm just saying.
Me too.
I would not be, I would be like, you know what, since you won't play stupid games, you can win a stupid prize and have a one-way trip. That red tie and that blue suit about to come off, and maybe the toupee, and spend some time with yourself and you where you can't give speeches and pontificate in a jail cell. Jail will give some people clarity, and I feel like Donald Trump needs some. But and you know what? He would be well within his right. And what are you going to do? Do shout out in prison? And that's the other thing. And I think that's a fitting punishment, right, guys? Because the reason why he kept talking is the man can't shut up. The man needs to constantly stand in front of a microphone and a pulpit. And think about what type of punishment it would be, not just being in jail and having to be there with people that he thinks that are beneath him, but the inability to get on Truth Social or whatever, or just pick up the phone and just do whatever. Oh my God. I mean, he alone would go crazy about that.
Without question. And of course, again, he stood outside the courtroom today and of course said, blame Biden, said the fix was in from the beginning. But this, and Mike B brought up the fact that the state of Georgia versus Trump will be a monumental because he can't afford those charges, especially charges 36 to 41. Those are critical charges. But I think that this trial and this verdict, more specifically, really established something here. It established a base, really. The precedent has now been broken. So future jurors, if we do see these cases come to a courtroom, now they don't have that type of weight on their shoulders. New York jurors took that weight off of Georgia, Florida, and Washington, D.C. And I guess you're already agreeing with it, but I'll let you talk about that, Austin. How important was that?
No, it was precedent setting. I think that in each of these cases, and let's specifically, of course, refer to this one, as Katia said, this man has been so disrespectful to every judge in every courtroom that he has been in over the last couple of months. And you give him, you warn him, you and the three of us would have been given, maybe 2 warnings before we would have been sent to prison, probably 1. And what did he do? In order to allegedly adhere to any of the gag orders by Judge Merchant, he had, as my sister referenced, some of his congressional clowns and other supporters come up and to state the exact same thing that he's not supposed to be saying, attacking the judge, attacking the jurors, attacking the system. So I think that that New York has really stood up. They set a precedent. And how can this judge not give him some time? How can he not? I mean, guilty on 34 counts. I could see if it was half and half or, mixed up. This is solidly unanimous, 34 counts. How can Judge Merchant not give him, not sentence him to something?
Right. Well, Katia?
Yeah. And you know what? He would be well within his rights. Listen,
Yes.
I know that the Constitution, the one that we all read and learned, is the real one. And I don't know what these folks are reading and how they're doing the interpretive dance. If we're all reading it in English, maybe there's another language that it's in, that they claim that there are rights in there that there aren't. And as much, I know it's hard for us to remember this, but the founding fathers got this part right. It's a working document. It's a work in progress because they knew the country would change. They put it that way because the people that were against slavery said one day we are going to make the correction. They also understood there's going to come a time when women may want to vote. So you have all these things. That's why you can add and subtract from it, right? And the other part is that, again, I don't know who needs to hear this, but church and state separation and the fact that we don't pledge allegiance to a person, we do it to the flag, because the reason we became an independent nation is to escape having an allegiance to a person, which therefore hinders your rights and your being. So if we're really about that life, he's got to go to jail, because no one is above the law. And if we don't hold him accountable, right, then all these documents and all these things that we say that make America different from other parts of the world, it doesn't mean anything. It's just lip service.
And
Robert J. Hansen says all those. I'm sorry, Austin. I just want to read Robert J. Hansen's comment there, and then you can go forward. He says all those white folks who think a guilty verdict is going to energize his base in November. He says, I fear it may energize Trump's base. But go ahead, Austin.
No, I think that again, we this needs to light a fire under our feet, under our butts, to get out and to support the Democratic ticket, because again, that base, as was just referenced, has been inspired by this guilty verdict. This is, Trump liked to say that it's the Biden Justice Department, the same Biden Justice Department that has been going after him, also went after the president's son.
Yeah, it's very true.
The very same Justice Department that 100%. Trump complained is going after him unfairly. It's the very same Justice Department that has Beau Biden on the hot seat.
Yeah, 100%. Here's another statement just coming in. Washington State Democrats on my email. Shastai Conrad, the chair of the Washington State Democratic Party. Today's verdict, this is a quote out of New York, affirms that the Washington State Democratic Party has been saying for more than 8 years, convicted felon Donald Trump is wholly unfit to lead our nation. His conviction today by a jury of his peers demonstrates the lengths convicted felon Trump will go to and the laws he will break to get what he wants. Another 4 years of power and at the expense of hardworking Americans. The Washington State Democratic Party will never stop fighting for a more perfect union, which is why we will continue to resist Donald Trump's campaign of lies, grift, and autocratic desires with every fiber of our being, every minute of every day, until the election is over and we have prevented the end of democracy again. Where does the campaign, Katia, how does the campaign use this, and how disappointed it would be if they don't use this? The Biden-Harris campaign.
We all want Mr. Biden. I get you. You come from an era where you say things like the gentleman from the good state of Georgia, the person on the left, but those days are gone. Those days left. I'm right there with you in sentiment, but gloves off. We gotta go lower. We gotta start bringing out the boxing gloves, because you're playing a gentleman's game there down in the swamp. And sometimes you got to go meet people where they are, in this particular case, in the swamp. And I know the truth is not sexy, but go for it. And here's the other thing, too, is that people, once again, them people that were going to vote for him, the convicted felon, they're going to vote for him. We already established that. There are some people, however, that are in the middle, right? Make sure women are a huge base of the Democratic Party. Remind them again what happens when they don't exercise to vote. Look at the things that they have lost, the things that they are fighting for. We just had a state pass, I forgot now, someone out there correct me, a law saying that if you have an abortion, you can have a harsher sentencing for having autonomy over your body than this man that just was found guilty of 34 felonies. Do you think that's right? Do you think that men should be making decisions over your body, over our daughters' bodies, right? Also, not everybody, I know this is very shocking for everybody, not everybody is a Christian, or everybody doesn't believe in God. are you comfortable with these folks not only bringing the Bible into public schools, but their version of the Bible, not the Bible, but their version of it? Are you comfortable with books that you and I grew up on, like Judy Blume, which last time I checked, nobody ever committed a crime because they read Judy Blume, being banned because it talks about something natural that happens to you as a young girl? The list goes on and on. If you're not comfortable with those things, and you may not be crazy about Biden, then you need to do the right thing and vote accordingly. Again, what's going on with the Supreme Court? It's more than just at the top. I feel like I need to scream this. It's also, stop blaming Mr. Biden for things that are not Mr. Biden's job description. Congress legislate, right? If you have a pothole that's down the street from your house, and I'm using simple terminology, that is not Joe Biden's fault. City councilmen, maybe you need to get rid of them. If the school board isn't doing their job, it's bigger than just the people at the top. And I need us to learn, look up what your congressperson has been doing. Have they brought any money to the district? Have they brought any legislation and been there for 20 years? Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm talking to you. You're over there coming to the floor with impeachment, but you brought
what's the song? What is it?
I'm sorry? Yeah, beach built body. But also on top of that, I'm like, where is, like, I'm being like really serious and we're kikiing, but I'm like, what money has she brought into her district? That's their job. Your congressperson is supposed to bring money to the district. If your highways are crappy and they're in the highways and the Ways and Means Committee, what are you doing? You know what I mean? So these are the things that you need to ask yourself, and you need to start looking how they vote on issues that matter to you and affect your day-to-day lives. The information is out there. It's not sexy. Go and educate yourself and stop just worrying about the top, which is important. But we know what happens when the wrong people are in charge of legislation. How many speakers of the House, guys, have we had just this year? Forget last year.
In the last year, right?
This year. And this woman wanted to impeach the current one.
Right.
Come on.
You know, the photos that Greer just momentarily showed, it's real significant. And if she could put them back up, that would be fantastic. But on the far right is Alvin Bragg, who got the conviction. His team just got the conviction today. And the center is Letitia James, the Attorney General in New York, who also got a judgment against Trump. In fact, 2 judgments, a sexual assault judgment. I think she was involved in that. But she also got the huge $500 million business fraud judgment. And then, of course, on the other end is Fani Willis, the district attorney in Fulton County, Georgia, who obviously has an extremely strong case, which is why they are attacking her left and right and trying to kick her off that case. But it is really, really interesting that it took, and it started, Austin, as you know, with Benny Thompson, a black congressman out of Mississippi, to lead that January 6th commission. And he placed it in the capable hands of other African Americans. And you know how Trump feels about African Americans, particularly black women. So this is all the more hurtful to Donald J. Trump. Mike V says that this is the downfall of the Republican Party. Anyone on the ticket for his choice of VP would be a fool at this point. Well, he's got a bunch of fools lined up. And I'm going to say this.
Listen.
A lot of fools.
Let me say this. Let me say this because I just, and I'm going to say this because I just got a note from DLCC. And they point something out that might be overlooked here. They say, quote, "This moment is unprecedented. Former President Trump was just found guilty of felony fraud charges related to the 2016 election." These charges, folks, were related to the 2016. That tells you that this guy committed campaign crimes to beat Hillary Clinton, and then unleashed the deadliest attack at the U.S. Capitol in history, an insurrection, to try and reverse his 2020 loss. So, folks, the question becomes, what does he have in store if he loses in 2024.
That's the part. Because again, we all said it. You, me, if we did 1/4 of that, we would be so far under jail, you would need a looking glass to try to find a speck of us. So if we are a country of laws, right? Not to mention is we go out into the world and we tell everybody that's out there doing stuff. The guy in Russia is out here running around crazy. The guy in North Korea, and the list goes on. And we say we're better than that. But we can't because we got our own circus clown.
Yep. And, you know, countries all over the world, Africa, all over the world, jail their leaders for corruption.
100%.
America would have been fine had Richard Nixon gone to jail and not been pardoned in 1974. America will be fine if Donald Trump goes to prison. America has survived the Civil War, you know, 2 world wars, Korean War, Vietnam War, Civil Rights Movement. We've survived January 6th. We'll be fine.
You
DL
said something
Hughley,
here, though. Austin, you said something really important. America was very divided during the 1970s because of Vietnam. The country was literally holding on by the seamstrings. We had, in late 1960s, 1970s, we had assassinations of beloved leaders. You had a whole group of people that found out for the first time that the government lies to you by what they saw on the evening news with the Vietnam War and what the government was telling them. And the other thing, too, is Richard Nixon, you know, if you have nothing else to say good about him, he had the good sense to understand that the country was more important than what he wanted. So when people came and said,
bigger.
You need to resign, not just you, all of y'all that had a hand in this, and go, he did. He put country in front of him. And when he left the White House, he stayed quiet. Do you know what I mean? So I think we need to learn from history. Yes, I know we are all frustrated. We're all tired. We're so exhausted. Like, we're beyond exhausted. But we can. History has shown us, like Austin said, we can make it to the other side. But it takes courage and it takes doing the right thing. Same thing. Iran-Contra, we got through that. You know, once again, when we found out that our country is making deals, you know, that shouldn't be making. And, you know, we're going to be okay. But we got clean house. We got clean house. Point blank.
DL Hughley just said, I'll bet Trump is saying the N-word now. So, you know, we heard that report yesterday. And in fact, it's interesting because I didn't hear denial from that report yesterday that
report,
he,
Stacey? I'm sorry, I missed that.
It was a report that came out that was verified, supposedly verified by Omaroso and a couple of others from The Apprentice.
Kwame, who won The Apprentice. And the other thing too is people are talking about why people now, because the time of the NDA is up. There was, when you were on The Apprentice,
right?
What part of your agreement to be on that show was you had to sign an NDA. So anything that you saw, whatever, you know. And again, the average person, I'm not talking about the celebrities, even some of the celebrities could not afford to be sued or whatever legalese that are going on. And while we're at it, when he gonna pay the state of New York? Because the bill is getting high. He got a bill due and he's not paying them, and he should be thrown in contempt for not paying that.
Right.
Yeah. It's something like 90,000 a day, something along those lines, that the fines accrue on that $500 million debt that he owes New York State. So you're right. It's an extremely great point. And of course, the other side of the spectrum, the Kool-Aid drinking MAGA followers, Ron DeSantis. This is a quote: "Today's verdict represents the culmination of a legal process that has been bent to the political will of the actors involved. A leftist prosecutor, a partisan judge, and a jury reflective of one of the most liberal enclaves in America, all in an effort to get Donald Trump." And then, of course, Speaker Johnson, "Today is a shameful day in American history. The Democrats cheered as they convicted the leader of the opposing party on ridiculous charges predicated on the testimony of a disbarred convicted felon." This was purely political. Do they believe what they say, Austin?
No, I don't
Just
believe
like
so.
that.
I think I think they're saying it for political expediency, but I don't think. I mean, I think deep down, Mike Johnson and McConnell and all the others, Marjorie Taylor Greene, know that know that he was guilty, and they know that he's guilty with not turning over intelligence documents, but they're drinking the Kool-Aid. But the one silver lining of this is I know both of you have seen polls leading up to this guilty verdict, where committed Trump supporters, said that they would have to reconsider their vote or support of Trump if he were found guilty. I'm just hoping that enough of them do come to that conclusion, and and uh, and not vote for him.
From your
Go
mouth
ahead,
to
Katrina.
God's ears. Let's pray so, because it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
looking
you're right. You're right.
it's not looking very sharp. And it's, again, the Democrats need to have call the play. It's time to go in for the kill. You have approximately 5 to 4 months.
5
You
months.
can do this, and you can stay on messaging, and the gloves have to come off, and also, not to mention, like I said, is if you're running for Congress and you're a Democrat, you need to say, we don't have the majority. When we had the majority, these are the bills that got passed. Look at what we were able to accomplish when we got them to focus a little bit and get a little bit of work done. But how can you do it when you play musical chairs with the Speaker of the House, when Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to throw shots and wear paraphernalia? Lone Boebert is switching districts like she's switching shirts. I mean, the list goes on and on. Veterans benefits, unemployment benefits, our military pay raise, all these things. That is not Joe Biden. That is Congress that is in charge of that. How many embassies don't have an ambassador, don't have staffing? How many officers, in the military, there's an act of succession. We didn't have an undersecretary for the Secretary of Defense for a minute. Like, that's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, that's not supposed to happen. We're not supposed to have government and, Stacy in accounting has got to fill in because we don't have
Put
the
me in
appropriate
accounting
people
office.
in. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying they have to point these things out and say, Mike Johnson, you're the Speaker of the House.
Yeah.
What
Well,
have you done to take care of the people's business?
100%. The first debate is in 3 weeks. I just can't imagine a more ideal backdrop for an opponent for Joe Biden than this. If they don't have him prepared, if he is not prepared, if he does not walk away with that debate in his back pocket, then they will have failed in a way that is monumental.
Get on that stage and call him a convicted felon on 34 counts. To my sister's point, play hardball. I don't know what the president's schedule is this evening, but he does need to be addressing the nation and blasting
100%.
blasting Donald Trump. I don't know that it should be from the from the Oval Office. It'd be a political speech, but they could have him go to the DNC. He needs to speak to the nation tonight and blast this man for his criminality. That's how you play hardball, because that's
Well,
what
Keith
Trump
Olbermann,
were the role reverse. We don't have time. You mentioned, Stacey, that if I heard you correctly, the White House issued a statement. That's nice, that's dandy, but the American people need to hear from the president tonight.
it's an unprecedented moment in the history of this country. You're 100% right. This should be he should be sitting in the Oval Office and go live from the Oval Office without question. Because what you're saying, I was going to mention Keith Olbermann. He said, remember, Democrats, henceforth, you must refer to him as convicted felon and Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump every time. And every time we write about him and every time we talk about him on the program, we make a habit of saying twice impeached, 4 times indicted. Now it's twice impeached, 4 times indicted, and 34 times convicted.
Absolutely. And also, listen, I love us as Black people, but we got to be in the business of telling the truth. We have learned nothing. If you learn nothing about this Diddy mess, and that's messy, tell the truth. Editors, put your courage hat on, and let's get back in the business of telling the truth. And journalism, part of our responsibility as journalists is to make people uncomfortable, to shake things up, and to lead with backup and say, this is why you can't play out here. Talking about, I'm sitting in the house. Cardi B is going to be fine. She's got money. You don't have money to relocate to Puerto Rico or to Italy and live in the country charmed life. You're trying to make it, get enough coins together, get on the bus to go to work. The people are telling you that if you are successful and you put in work, and we all know what it takes to be successful in this country as a Black person, you didn't get that job because of DEI. We know the code switching we got to do every single day. You think it's rough now? It's going to be 10 times worse. Listen, you all played around 4 years ago and thought it was a joke. And then you walking up every single day going like, oh my God, oh my God. Well, guess what? It's going to get worse. They are telling you what they are going to do. And they have been doing it. This plan has been in place for 10 years. They just needed the leader de facto to do it. So stop playing people. Like, it just is exhausting. You don't gotta like the guy that's in there, but at least he follows the rules. And you can build on that. If you don't like what he's doing, then vote for people in Congress, vote for people in your governor, the people in your legislature to help him, steer him in the direction that you would feel the country should move in. But it takes all of us. It can't just always be us out here doing the same old, trying to warn y'all, and y'all want to play games. Again, Charlamagne, Cardi B, those folks are going to be fine. You are not. So stop playing.
Well,
And
let's
the
close
negative
with
shift.
Go ahead, Austin, before we
I'm
close.
sorry. The negative shift in American democracy because of Donald Trump is going to be felt for a generation. We're saying on this call that folks should come out and support Joe Biden. The sad reality is that, yes, while we want Joe Biden back in the reelected, if indeed he is, and I'm praying that he is, it's still going to be a challenging time in America because January 6th is going to be a cakewalk compared to what the next January 6th or whatever the date is for them to certify the election. America will be even more divided. Trump is not going to go away.
Yeah. One of our YouTube viewers with the initials PB, we really appreciate you. He or she says that this channel is fantastic. You are all smart and eloquent and thoughtful. We need to get more viewers. You are a hidden gem. And he or she also says, I love this lady. She is brilliant. Talking about you, Katia.
You know what? Thank you. So I'm just a student of history. And what did Maya Angelou say? When someone shows you who they are, believe them. We don't need a dress rehearsal. We don't need a third incarnation. And if you don't believe me, next time you're in the New Jersey area, you're down by the waterfront, come on down to Atlantic City. We got a lot of nice buildings that used to be owned by Mr. Trump that are dark because he is a con man. We can show you there's a lot of cheap real estate available in Atlantic City, New Jersey, courtesy Mr. Trump. If you need a visual of what he can do, what he's doing to the country, I want better for us. I want better for my daughter. I don't know if you have children, Austin. I want better for all of our kids. Isn't the job to leave the world better, not to go 60 steps backwards? No, ma'am. We can do this.
How about a few hundred years backwards is what they want.
Thank you.
Yep.
So let's close out the Biden-Harris campaign. This is what Michael Tyler, the communications director of the Biden-Harris campaign, said in the wake of the verdict. He says, in New York today, we saw that no one is above the law. Donald Trump has always mistakenly believed he would never face consequences for breaking the law for his own personal gain. But today's verdict does not change the fact that the American people face a simple reality. There's still only one way to keep him out of the Oval Office, and that is at the ballot box. Convicted felon or not, Trump will be the Republican nominee for president. The threat Trump poses to our democracy has never been greater. He is running an increasingly unhinged campaign of revenge and retribution, pledging to be a dictator on day one and calling for our Constitution to be terminated so he can regain and keep power. A second Trump term means chaos, ripping away Americans' freedoms and fomenting a political violence, and the American people will reject it this November. So that is the campaign's statement on the verdict today. The verdicts that came in unanimous, 34 guilty verdicts against Donald Trump in New York City. An amazing development. Katia Woods, yeah, I got to follow her on social media, but follow her work, Philadelphia Tribune, and wherever she decides to put her pen to paper, y'all got to follow her. And of course, Austin Cooper with the Washington Informer. Thanks so much for tuning in on this special broadcast, the history making day in America. Sad day in some ways, but nonetheless unprecedented. Thanks for joining. Let it be known. We appreciate it.
Thank you.